All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where today we are putting your financial autopilot under the microscope. I am so incredibly enthusiastic about this topic because look, true wealth preservation, it is absolutely not about painful deprivation. You don't have to give up the things you genuinely love or start aggressively penny pinching. It's actually just about auditing the financial inertia in your life. We're talking about finding the money you are already spending right now, but getting absolutely zero value from.
Take a look at this quote because it perfectly anchors our entire philosophy for today. It is about the specific, verifiable costs of not paying attention. This explainer is totally grounded in the pure mathematical reality of ignoring small recurring decisions. It's about what actually happens when you finally open your eyes to the math that's been running quietly in the background of your daily life.
So here is our roadmap. We're going to take 10 seemingly disconnected financial habits and group them into broader, systemic traps. We'll kick things off with the cost of inertia, then we'll move into the depreciation trap, tackle the subscription creep, uncover retail and risk illusions, expose hidden financial fees, and finally, wrap up with exactly how you can go about reclaiming your wealth. Let's get right to it.
Section 1, the cost of inertia. You know, the difference between having $4,000 in the bank and $40,000 is usually just 10 really small decisions that you made once, years ago, and just never looked at again.
Section 2, the depreciation trap. Let's look at how we unknowingly treat permanent asset depreciation exactly like it's a monthly subscription fee.
Check out this AA data. It's actually fascinating. So the average new vehicle loses about $4,334 in value every single year. But here's the crazy secret. The person who trades in their car every 3 years and rolls that remaining balance into a brand new loan, they are deliberately entering the absolute steepest, most punishing part of the depreciation curve. And they're doing it on schedule for the rest of their driving life. The new monthly payment feels like progress, but it's really just a permanent fee for staying at the most expensive point of a car's lifespan.
All right, prepare yourself for the gut punch here. Over 10 years, if you just avoid that 3-year trade-in cycle, you avoid over $43,000 in direct mathematical losses. But what if you took that exact same money, the money you sidestepped from the dealership's depreciation schedule, and put it into a basic investment account earning a modest 8%? It grows to $62,785. Seriously, that is an entire second car, paid in full, in cash, funded entirely by changing one single habit you probably never thought to question.
And guess what? This exact same spent versus invested logic bleeds right into the technology we literally hold in our hands every single day: smartphone upgrades. The hardware we're buying today is fully functional for 4, maybe 5 years. So, when you replace your device 2 years early just because your carrier says you're eligible, you are paying for a second device while the first one is still doing its job perfectly well. Over a decade, that is $4,200 lost to early upgrades, or nearly $6,900 if you had just invested it. Seriously, just let your devices reach the actual end of their functional life.
Section 3, the subscription creep. This is the silent wealth siphon that's built entirely on frictionless corporate design. Streaming, software, random apps, memberships, food delivery services, it's a silent drain. According to some really interesting CINR research, if you ask a random person what they spend on subscriptions every month, they'll confidently guess somewhere around $86. But when they actually sit down and go line by line through their bank statement, the real number lands way closer to $219. Now that gap of $133 extra a month, that is not a personal memory problem. That is a deliberate design outcome. Free trials, deeply buried cancellation buttons, auto renewals, it's all a business model built entirely on friction.
The absolutely crucial point here is the long-term math. $133 a month in forgotten subscriptions is nearly $16,000 lost over 10 years. And if you had invested that money at an 8% return, that becomes over $23,000 built in pure wealth. And the fix isn't even complicated. It's just a quick audit, having the willingness to actually hit the cancel button, and building a habit of checking back in on things periodically.
Which beautifully sets up our next category: unused gyms. Look, the fitness industry's entire business model relies heavily on you paying, but not showing up. Roughly 2/3 of all gym memberships go totally unused. The average person is shelling out $69 a month for a behavior that simply isn't happening. Over a decade, that's over $8,000 in direct costs, or nearly $12,000 if you invested it. If your actual, realistic pattern is only going twice a month, a good pair of running shoes and a free workout app covered the exact same ground for a fraction of the price.
And oh man, here is the great irony of modern entertainment, the streaming stack. We all canceled our ridiculously expensive cable packages to save money, right? But now people are stacking 4 or 5 ad-free streaming platforms and paying around $100 a month all over again. You haven't solved the problem at all. You literally just relocated it somewhere slightly less visible. Picking just 2 or 3 services deliberately saves you over $10,000 directly over a decade, or over $15,000 invested. The content was never the expensive part, your inattention was.
Moving to Section 4, Retail and Risk Illusions. This is all about how companies monetize fear, fancy packaging, and outright mathematical impossibilities.
First up, name brands. Consumer Reports has run blind taste tests on grocery staples for years, and the results are undeniable. Trained tasters with absolutely no labels in the room cannot reliably tell the generic store brand from the fancy name brand. You are paying a 25% premium strictly for advertising, better packaging design, and prime shelf placement, not better food. For a household spending $800 a month on groceries, 10 years of paying that brand premium means $24,000 just spent on marketing. Invested, that same money becomes almost $35,000.
Now let's talk about the lottery. And to do that properly, we really need to define expected value. Mathematically speaking, this is the actual expected outcome of a probabilistic event, not the pie-in-the-sky dream outcome. A lottery ticket returns only about 50 to 65 cents for every dollar spent. It is a near certain mathematical partial loss. The habit of framing this as just ordinary entertainment totally ignores the math. A movie ticket delivers what it promises with certainty. The lottery just delivers a mathematical loss.
And you know, that exact same illusion of risk applies perfectly to extended warranties. These things have 50 to 80% profit margins. Why? Because the retailer standing at the register knows the actual failure rate of that product way better than you do. The warranty isn't really protecting you from risk so much as it is monetizing your wild overestimate of that risk. Over a decade, the average household spends $4,500 on these plans across electronics and appliances. Invested instead, that's $6,519. Which brings us to generic medications and something called the FDA's bioequivalence standard. The FDA strictly requires that a generic medication must contain the absolutely identical active ingredient and dosage as the brand name drug it's replacing. It is identical chemistry. Choosing an $8 generic over a $350 brand name drug saves thousands. Over 10 years, that is a massive swing of over $17,000 in invested wealth. And you get it just by asking your pharmacist one simple question: hey, is a generic available?
Section 5. Hidden financial fees. Okay, this one is the silent killer of compounding interest.
A seemingly tiny percentage difference can make a colossal impact. Say a commission-based advisor puts you in a 1% managed fund versus you choosing a 0.2% index fund. It sounds like a fraction of a difference, right? Barely anything. But on a $100,000 portfolio over 20 years, assuming identical underlying market performance, that higher fee silently strips away over $52,000. That difference isn't you getting worse performance, it is purely fees compounding against you for 2 decades.
And finally, Section 6, Reclaiming Your Wealth. Let's pull this all together.
Look, correcting these 10 leaks is absolutely not about giving up the things you value. Nobody we talked about today gave up anything real. They simply audited their inertia. When we tally up the direct, unnecessary costs of all these categories combined, the cars, the phones, the gyms, the warranties, it is staggering. We're talking about $15,230 every single year in completely unexamined automatic spending that is bringing absolutely no added value to your life.
And right here, this is the number I want to leave burning in your mind today: $220,631. If you take that $15,230 of existing annual spending, leave it completely untouched, and just invest it at a modest 8% for a decade, this is what it becomes. This is not some magical number earned through a stressful promotion or taking on a second job. It is a number that literally already exists inside your current spending right now, just sitting there unclaimed. So, I'm going to leave you with one final provocative question. Will you leave this money funding someone else's balance sheet, or will you step up and reclaim it for your own? The math changes the very second you plug in your own numbers and break that inertia. The question was never whether this money could be found. It was always whether anyone was actually going to look. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and go run your own audit.